Now, sometimes things go perfectly as planned, or even better than we anticipated. But as you know, in the Antiverse, sometimes things go wrong, completely wrong, and disaster strikes, disrupting all carefully made plans. AC family, brace yourselves. I have some news. It's about the Fire Nation. I regret to announce that disaster has hit the Selva de Fuego, and we've got some serious problems to fix. Immediately. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. The Fire Nation. They're ravenous, dangerous. They kill and eat every living thing in their path, my fingers and arms included, when I'm working around their kingdom, the Selva de Fuego here. But it looks like I'm scheduled to pay these territories a visit, as I have some major repairs to do to resolve what has turned out to be a failed experiment. I'll explain everything, but wait until you see the adjustments and living additions I end up pulling off to help save the Selva de Fuego. So first things first, what happened here? It was time to assess the damage. AC family, 3 major problems. First, there's been some critical damage. If you saw last week's episode, I mentioned that our refugium has sprung a leak somewhere, assumingly from a crack that may have happened at the bottom of the refugium, as a result of the weight of the water and gravel layer it supported. And this leak went on to ultimately cause a massive flood in the land area. I connected the outflow tube from the filter to the waterfall so that the river water could continue to cycle around as normal. But check out the ground, completely waterlogged. And of course, the refugium, still supporting the cleaner plant life, was completely drained of water. This was alarming at first because had the Fire Nation's queen, who we call Queen Solis, failed to surface and drowned as the flood happened, then it meant certain death for the entire ant colony, because Queen Solis is the colony's only egg-laying queen. But I was relieved a bit when some of you brought up a very good point, that these ants naturally deal with flash floods in their natural habitat, and we've even seen them do it in the past, so there was no need to fear. And lo and behold, I eventually spotted this structure. A tall anthill of soil, which they've built above the flood's water level, ending at just below this bromeliad, which formed a botanical crown at the apex of their majestic saving hill. For sure, Queen Solis and all her young were tucked away, dry and safe, inside this anthill refuge. I can't believe the ants built this entire soil castle as the flood was happening. If you think about it, that would be like a city of humans constructing a fortified building while a giant flood was occurring. It's amazing that the Fire Nation was able to execute all this right in the nick of time. Alright, so thankfully, it seemed the colony was dealing with the flood well. But here was our second problem. You might recall from a past video that this refugium was a separate body of water which we placed into the Selva de Fuego to act as a living space for some beneficial cleanup plants and a couple alien shrimp. This all-female and pregnant team of alien shrimp was tagged as alien because we weren't sure where they were from, nor their species ID. But these aliens had a dual purpose as parts of a grand biological experiment of ours. One, they were supposed to release their newborn shrimplets in the refugium, and these baby shrimplets were to gradually be sucked into the waterfall to fall into the river and act as living food for our school of guppies, called the Guppy Gang. There was also a pregnant alien shrimp placed directly into the river. And 2, this entire population of shrimp in the Selva de Fuego was to join our corridor's catfish, the white tigers, as additional cleanup crew for the waters. It was a biological experiment for which we had high hopes, and it has been 2 months since we initiated the setup. But now with this flood, I had no idea where the shrimp were, nor if they even had babies as planned. Had the 2 shrimp in the refugium died when all the water drained? What happened to that 1 shrimp we put in the river? So many questions, and I will get to their answers in a bit, because I want to let you know about our third problem. The school of gregarious guppies, which lived in the river, who were supposed to prey on the shrimplet babies, had completely vanished. That's right, the Guppy Gang was nowhere to be seen. In fact, while I was away on a trip 2 months ago, my helper, who cares for all my ant colonies, began to notice that the guppy gang members were mysteriously disappearing, one by one. She said she saw no evidence of a dead guppy body floating anywhere. They just kind of disappeared until there was none left. And so here we are now. A flood, no shrimp, and no guppies. So what I needed to do first was examine the river for answers. The first thing I noticed was the Fire Nation, taking advantage of all the plant cover on the water's surface, like an effective wharf of sorts, for easy water travel. It seems the ants here are trying to collect one of the white tiger's food pellets that got trapped on a frog bit and didn't make it to the bottom. Look at them getting at the fish pellet. Now you gotta remember that this river water is moving, so navigating around these wetlands can be quite tricky. The ants move around cautiously, but some take a leap of faith to float using the river's current to nearby frogbit. Such funny ants. Their best bet to safety, however, I think, is to stick to the main path leading to their nest. Now, despite how prolific floating plant life has proven beneficial to the ants, it has completely overtaken the surface of the water over time, and their roots completely obscured a great deal of the water space. I tried to look inside. The white tigers seem to have done well in this crowded root forest. But what I was interested to know was if our alien shrimp, which was placed in this river, was still alive somewhere here. Could the 2 alien shrimp placed in the refugium possibly still be alive too? Maybe having migrated to the river prior to the flood? I think once we cleared all these floating plants, we might be able to solve the mystery of what has become of our failed experiment. So, AC family, I went in. I worked quickly. I removed a lot of water lettuce and frogbit. All of these floating plants were initially installed to help clean the river of its toxic nitrogenous compounds caused by ant garbage and from waste produced by the fish. But because we were now down some 7 guppies, there was less of a need for them to be around to clean up. I was more than happy to clean up the area, mostly of the large water lettuce and frogbit. And while I was at it, I also decided to give this overbearing arrow plant a good trimming, as the sudden abundance of water from the flood caused it to really undergo a growth spurt. I snipped away until finally, the Selva de Fuego looked like this. Much better. Look at how clear that water looks now. And with the removal of the plants from the water surface, more light was able to reach the bottom of the river, which helped me spot this. Aha! An alien shrimp was alive! I wonder if the other 2 were alive. I looked around and spotted another, deep inside the rock cave. Wow! She was a big one, and I recognize her as one of the alien shrimp from the refugium. Amazing! This means she managed to squeeze through one of the tubes leading into the waterfall and into the river. I wonder if her refugium mate also followed her into the river. Looking around, and yup, I spotted a 3rd and final alien shrimp. And look, she's got a lot of eggs. This had to be a 2nd batch of eggs from the ones she was carrying when we first got her. Okay, so all 3 alien shrimp were alive, but I didn't see any shrimplets around. What did this mean? Alright AC family, are you ready for what I deduced might have happened? So in the last video featuring these shrimp, many of you posted some possible species ID. And based on your comments and more research, the best ID I decided on was the genus Macrobrachium. Freshwater shrimps characterized by the extreme enlargement of the 2nd pair of paraeopods. In other words, these shrimp have elongated clawed arms. I found out that Macrobrachium shrimp exist in the waters of many countries around the world, from the Indo-Pacific region to Africa, Asia, to the Americas, and more. But AC family, get this! I also found out that many Macrobrachium require brackish water for the proper development of their shrimplets, meaning they need some salt water in order for their babies to develop. This could be the reason why there were no baby shrimplets seen swimming around anywhere, which after 2 months, one would expect to see after placing 3 pregnant shrimps, carrying babies so developed and ready to emerge, they even had eyes. Another possibility is that these Macrobrachium shrimp are a species that doesn't need brackish water for the development of their shrimplets. And, while I was away, perhaps the shrimp did release their shrimplets into the water as planned, and the guppies ate them all, But at some point, I suppose the macrobrachium shrimp in the refugium decided to ditch the refugium and migrate into the river, where they, get this, ate the guppy gang. AC family, turns out many macrobrachium shrimp are very avid predators. OMG. Could these alien shrimp really be our guppy gang murderers? It would explain the guppies disappearing one by one, with no trace of a floating body anywhere. What do you guys think? For now, it seems to be the most likely scenario. But what I found interesting is that they didn't seem to touch or prey on the white tigers. My guess was that perhaps the hard armored skin of our school of Corydorus catfish made them a difficult prey for the macrobrachium shrimp. Thank goodness. So now I had to decide what we were going to do from here. Should I get rid of the shrimp entirely and add more guppies? Well, actually, the reason I added guppies to the Selva de Fuego in the first place was because I was hoping they would eat some Fire Nation workers and act as a form of natural population control. But over the several months that the Selva de Fuego has existed, I found that the guppies don't care much for the fire ants. So in effect, they were just creatures of beauty for the river, with no purpose in the system. And incidentally, high producers of waste and toxic nitrogenous compounds. So although it was super sad that the guppy gang was no longer around, their absence eliminates a lot of the bio-waste production. And well, ideally, we only want creatures in the Selva de Fuego that somehow contribute to the overall well-being of the entire system, and of the capital organisms of the kingdom, the ants. Sadly, aesthetic beauty is not going to keep the system going, so I've decided not to add more guppies to the river to replace the guppy gang. Sorry, guppy gang fans. We need to think of the Selva de Fuego as a whole. So what did I want to do? Well, since the macrobrachium shrimp seem to be doing well in the river at the moment, in harmony with the white tigers, and they seem to be doing their job well at keeping the river clean of debris and dead ants, I decided to give them a second chance at breeding. I don't know if their first round of babies were eaten, or if they simply didn't develop due to needing brackish water, but I decided perhaps having a colony of shrimp around in these waters might prove helpful. I decided to add 2 male and 1 more female macrobrachium shrimp. Take a look at those super long arms of the males. The alpha males of this species have the longest arms, and from what I've read, their social hierarchy is pretty interesting. Apparently, there is only 1 alpha male in a group who possesses the longest arms, and once that male dies, or gets defeated in a battle by challenging males, the new alpha male's arms and body grow in size. If the macrobrachium shrimp do end up breeding, and more shrimp start inhabiting the river, we'll be able to witness this neat social structure a lot better. But hey, if this is a species that requires brackish water to proliferate, then I suppose we can wait until these shrimp all die out naturally, and decide what we want to put into the river then. But for now, we could not add any more fish, as they would surely fall prey to the shrimp. Except for more white tigers. I also wanted to increase the numbers of white tigers from 4 to 10, because corridors usually live in huge shoals of hundreds of members. They've proven great at eating dead ants in the water, and also have proven to be able to survive living around these macrobrachium shrimp. So why not increase the white tiger team too? Alright AC family, shall we? I think our females seem interested at their new guests. So first, after temperature and drip acclimating the shrimp, I added the new shrimp into the river. The younger male began to wander off and explore his new home. And the alpha male, who by the way seemed to only have 1 long arm, made his way straight for the cave. And surprisingly, the female who was in there formerly decided to stay out of his way. The new young female decided to simply explore the entanglement of Sagittaria leaves. It was so interesting to watch the new shrimp exploring their new surroundings. But what truly interested me the most was this one-armed alpha male who clearly seemed to be looking for something. Or perhaps someone. Could he smell that there were egg-cradling females around? I watched carefully as he snooped around, seemingly with intent. He actually had quite a nice dark blue color to his shell. The other male was already starting to feed on dead ants on the river bottom, which was a great sign. This younger male allegedly will maintain the length of his arms until he becomes the alpha male shrimp. But until then, he will stay away from the current one-armed alpha male. Oops. Seems he's even willing to give way to white tigers. Speaking of which, it's time to add the second batch installment of white tigers. I released them into their new watery domain, and to my surprise, instantly started to eat decaying ants. Perfect. With the addition of the new shrimp and the white tigers, there was one last thing left to fix, or simply make an adjustment to. I decided to keep the refugium, but instead turn it into a nesting box for the Fire Nation. I filled it with soil and added some nerve plants. And so, AC family, today the Selva de Fuego looks like this. It was all just so pleasing to the eyes now. The refugium turned nest area was surprisingly a hit. The Fire Nation excitedly explored the new digging medium. They climbed the new nerve plants with jubilee and enthusiasm, and this new deep and elevated nesting area became the newest talk of the kingdom. I am happy I decided to keep the container in the territories, because it offered the ants a lot of digging space, while also keeping the soil from being dumped into the river, all hidden nicely behind the rockscape of the river's waterfall. And about the river, have a look. It looked a lot better now, without all that plant clutter, and was super calming to the eyes. Look at how beautiful that looks. More light could illuminate the river and better display its inhabitants, so we can observe them much more effectively. It was nice to see the larger grouping of white tigers in the waters. And AC family, you won't believe what I spotted beneath the waterfall. Have a look. It looks like our one-armed alpha male has found love. Do you see her there? In the shadows? The female shrimp stood facing her new suitor. They sat in a loving engagement, face to face, touching each other lovingly with their antennae. And when the one-armed alpha male had the guts to advance closer, she played hard to get and slipped away. How cute. And hey, she's also got a batch of eggs on the way. See them there? Man, I truly hope this macrobrachium species is not the kind that needs brackish water for their shrimplets to develop, because I would love for a big colony of macrobrachium shrimp to establish in these waters. They'd be entertaining to watch, and best of all, help keep the river clean. I was totally happy with the Selva de Fuego's current state. It seems we've managed to solve some mysteries and make yet another set of improvements to these constantly developing lands. It has been 3 weeks now since the refugium was found empty and the flood had consumed the lands. The soil was no longer waterlogged as the floodwaters had evaporated and been sucked up by the plants over time. The fire ants could now expand again from just the anthill and start digging their nest tunnels all around the territories once more. And even in their new high grounds. To celebrate the new Selva de Fuego, I placed in a roach, which the Fire Nation didn't take long to find. They rushed in to collect our gift. The thing I learned from all of this, from our failed biological experiment, plus plumbing malfunction, is that sometimes growth or improvement requires some kind of mishap, some kind of failure. For instance, if it weren't for our failed biological experiment, we would not have created this much more functional space, this new nest box, which, to be fair, the Fire Nation needed more than a venue for cleaning plants. The river profile was much better now too, with its clearer surface, its greater team of river cleaners, and elimination of members that were not the greatest contributors to the entire system. With more water surface, it seems the river has also become an even more effective trap for visiting insects, like this poor male black panther alate. Yikes! There's truly no hope for anything ending up in these hostile Fire Nation stomping grounds. I realized through all this that the process of trial and error is necessary to evolution and improvement. It's how we learn. To be completely honest, AC family, what we've done so far with the Selva de Fuego here has been largely uncharted territory in the hobby. Not a lot of people have made this foray into paludarial ant farms, complete with water creatures, flowing river, rain system, etc. We're among the first in the world to try ideas like this, And isn't it quite exciting that together we're on the leading edge of ant vivarium discovery? Of course, we're bound to make mistakes, because we don't have an instruction manual to follow that someone before us has written. Instead, we are writing the instructions manual as we go along. Indeed, we've had many challenges with this setup already, but I believe failure is all part of the success process. And there's no denying that thanks to many small but ambitious experiments, the Selva de Fuego here is still one of the baddest ant setups in the Antiverse for one of the baddest ant colonies in the world. Alright, AC family, do you like the look of the new Selva de Fuego? I'm not certain how this new setup will fare, but I will surely keep you updated on the progress of its inhabitants. Don't you wonder if these shrimp will end up breeding? Don't you want to see how complex shrimp society is, and how they will end up contributing to the system? I know I do. So hit that subscribe button and bell icon now, so you don't miss out on their continuing story. And hit the like button every single time, including now. If you're new to the channel and want to catch up on all your AntsCanada lore, click this playlist here to watch all the stories of the ants of the Antiverse from the very beginning, so you can better appreciate the journey the ants, as well as we watching them, have been on. Trust me, it's crazy. AC Inner Colony, I have left a hidden cookie for you here if you would just like to watch extended play footage of the new Selva de Fuego. It is super calming and satisfying to the eyes, so do check it out. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, which was your favorite ant colony and why? There was no real one correct answer, but congratulations to Henry Maravilla, who correctly answered, my favorite colony in the Antiverse is definitely the Dark Knights. I find it fascinating how they can make genetic copies of themselves to mate without inbreeding. It just shows how different ants are compared to us humans. Congratulations, Henry! You just won a free Hybrid Nest 2.0 premium ant farm from our shop. In this week's AC question of the week, we ask, why is the death of the guppy gang ultimately beneficial for the Selva de Fuego and inhabitants? Leave your answer in the comment section and you could win a free ebook handbook from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 AM Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.